But I want to take a moment to just introduce and acknowledge our panel moderator. And our panel moderator is Nicole Steele. And Nicole is a dear friend and colleague. Nicole is currently with Amalgamated Bank, but that does not begin to express what her impact has been. I first met Nicole in DC, where Nicole was one of the architects of the DC Solar for All program, which was the template for the National Solar for All program. At the time, Nicole was executive director of Grid Mid-Atlantic. But again, the title doesn't begin to express her impact. And she went from there to DOE, and then DOE detailed to EPA, and basically all of the federal acronyms. But at DOE and at EPA, Nicole was also the primary architect of the federal Solar for All program that we're going to be talking about here today. So we're really blessed to be hearing from Nicole as one of the mothers of the Solar for All program, going back years and years and years now, to be able to be here leading this panel. And also, y'all pull her aside in the hallway too, because she knows some things. But Nicole, come on up, along with Billy Briscoe, Kenya Stump, and Tyler Archie. This is the clicker. Too many.
All right. Well, thank you for that very, very nice introduction, Michelle. I'm going to hand Tyler the clicker. You get the clicker. I have too many things in my hand right now. Good morning, everyone. I had a really great trip in yesterday, and I'm really sorry I missed the dinner last night, but really excited to be spending the day here with everyone. And Michelle is absolutely right. If you want to pull me aside and pick my brain, see lots and lots of friends in the audience, but always very interested in meeting new friends. I'm actually really excited for this conversation this morning. We got a mix of old friends and new friends on the panel. And I think to Michelle's words around what was talked about yesterday, which was the, what did you say, unity, alignment, and incentives. I think that's actually a really good transition into this first conversation, because I think we're gonna start the day a little bit with the why, and why folks applied to the Solar for All in the first place, and why that can bring true impact to the rural South. And before we dive into that, I wanted to just take a little moment to talk a little bit about the very, very high levels of Solar for All. And I'm sure everyone's been in these conversations many, many times, but as someone who, was writing and designing the Solar for All notice of funding opportunity, I'm sure everybody in this room is familiar with that NOFO. We really had, we had a blank canvas when we wrote Solar for All. It wasn't called Solar for All. It was like a zero net energy incentive program. It wasn't even solar. It could have gone to a targeted number of states. It could have gone to different types of awardees. We had lots of decisions to make in the design of that program. And I think from my perspective, some of the linchpin design decisions were sort of three things. The first one was designing a program that was going to target 56 states and territories and the District of Columbia. And the reason we designed the program in that way is so that we could support all Americans, solar for all, and that we weren't focused exclusively on states and local governments that have existing programs and supporting those existing programs to get better. We obviously want to do that, but we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to be part of this clean energy transition. And a lot of those folks are here in this room in the rural South. And so really making sure that everyone had an opportunity to be at the table, and not only an opportunity, but very, very targeted to ensure that all 56 states and territories and the District of Columbia were included in the awards. So number one. Number two, was the decision to focus on solar, and not only residential solar, but community solar. And giving there was a strong push. I won't name names, but there was a strong push to focus exclusively on residential solar. And for a lot of folks in the room, you know that that residential solar is only going to get us partway there. It's a big piece of the puzzle, but we have to have the ability to install community solar as well as multifamily affordable housing solar as well. And so that being part of the program was a huge decision around access. And then last but not least, the decision around requiring a minimum of a 20% household savings. And I know that this is something that may give folks a lot of heartburn in terms of like how this is actually going to work and how are we going to track this? How are we going to report this? But as somebody who designed a Solar for All program, or I should, helped design a Solar for All program in DC and then implemented that program, you really, really need to ensure that you're thinking about and you have intentionality around that household energy savings, because that's really what's getting at the core of why we're deploying. We're deploying solar because we want to drive down energy burden. We want to make energy more affordable, and we want folks to be able to use, folks that are disproportionately impacted by their utility bills to have the opportunity to be first in line for the clean energy transition. So with that said, we're gonna jump in on who everyone is and what your organization is, and really the why you applied to Solar for All in the first place. And then we'll come back through and go through the details of your program. So how about we start at the end with Billy?
Thank you, Nicole. My name is Billy Briscoe. I am the Chief Executive of the Clean Energy Fund of Texas. And really, the reason why had a lot to do with Michelle and Eric Lockhart and NREL, and myself and Steve Brown, who is the founder of the Clean Energy Fund of Texas, reading a document a couple of years ago called Breaking Barriers, and thinking to ourselves as we're reading it, we've got to reproduce this all over the country. And so I'll tell you a little bit more about it a little bit later, but the why is really, again, because of folks in this room.
Thank you all. I'm Kenya Stump, Director at Kentucky's Office of Energy Policy. The why, I think for us in Kentucky, it comes down to really, our mission and Governor Beshear taking care of our neighbors and easing suffering and the burden of those in Kentucky and the citizens. And for us, the past 4 years, we have a significant proportion of our population that, I can say is truly suffering from our devastating tornadoes that left them without homes 3 years ago, flooding in eastern Kentucky. We're rebuilding entire communities. We have displaced families. We have low-income families with extremely high energy burden. So I approached it as it's a way for me to help ease the burden and alleviate some of the suffering from my people in the state of Kentucky. And I'm just designing a program to do that using solar as the tool. And officially, I would say it's market transformation. That's what EPA wants to hear. But in that market transformation is showing how we can do this in the state of Kentucky with no existing low-income program. No existing. We haven't even shown it can work. And our first step is make it work and change some perceptions.
In a very similar spirit. I mean, y'all who know me know that, my work and my approach in this space is really about my faith walk and how to love my neighbor as myself with the geeky stuff I know how to do and clean energy and sustainability. So when Groundswell undertook to go after this program, and, our why was really about joyful service, joyful service. It's one of our organization's core values. and being able to work across the rural Southeast and to be able to serve our neighbors and cut their energy burdens and do it in partnership with our rural and municipal utilities across the region. We just can't wait to get started with all the good stuff that this is going to enable us to do just to help people in a way that matters at the kitchen table.
Hey, everybody. So I work for Hope Enterprise Corporation. We're the SFA winner for Mississippi and Arkansas. A little background on our organization. We're the largest female and women-owned financial organization in the country. And our walk has not included solar. So it wasn't an easy sell within the organization with so many needs to say, let's do solar. You don't really see solar. Sort of like Kenya said, there's really no evidence that this is the way to go, except when you leave the Deep South, it's clear it's working in other communities. So our mission is to help the financial health, or to improve the financial health and wealth of individuals and under-resourced communities in the Deep South. And over our history, we have played a role at Hope of stepping up when other groups have not done that. So there was the financial crisis, Hurricane Katrina, and at least in our footprint, we did the legwork to sort of find out that some of the states either may not apply or they may not have deployment strategies that would connect with the individuals that Hope has served over these years. So thank you, Nicole. Like when we read the NOFO, there was this option for nonprofits to apply, and that really opened doors, hearts and minds at Hope that we could do this. So I have my personal why, but Hope is, I'm sort of standing on the shoulders of giants at Hope who've been doing this for 30 years. And so, Nicole, thanks for putting that in the NOFO. And we're excited to get started.
You're welcome. No, we wanted to make sure, and again, to my point earlier, that everyone had an opportunity to be part of this program. And we knew that not every state was going to be able to participate from their state energy office or from their governor's office. And so that there needed to be other players at the table to ensure that these programs would exist. And so, really with that why, I think it's the thing that I have been sort of grounding myself in over the past week and really remembering why we do this work and why this program is so important and why we need to be aligning together to support each other in its not only sort of rollout but also its success, and really, teaching others on why this is so important. So continuing to ground ourselves in that conversation, I think, is going to be something that we're going to have to keep thinking about over the next handful of months of ensuring that folks understand why this program is so important. So with that, we got some slides. So we're going to dive into a little bit more programmatic details around the 4 programs of like what they look like, and I think it's really interesting mix of programs. So we're going to go in the order of Michelle. So let me pull up my notes really quick. We're going to go in the order of Michelle, Tyler, Kenya, and then Billy. Yeah. All right. Fantastic.
So, and I'll be super quick. Our program is called Southeast Rural Power, and it's a regional program. It covers 8 states. And just a couple of the highlights of the way that we're approaching the work. It's a $156 million award. And our goal is to cut electricity bills in half for 17,000 low-income households across our region. And our program includes financial assistance for community solar. I'll show a little graph that talks about how that works. Energy storage for resilience. I don't know about y'all, but we don't talk to many folks who don't want that battery connected to their solar panel so the light stays on if the power goes off. Grants for enabling repairs, because we also know there are a whole lot of roofs that are going to have to be fixed to be able to put solar panels on top. A loan loss reserve to really help entrepreneurs across our region. When we talk about South Alabama or Southern Mississippi, where we'll be working hand in hand, or many of the other places that we serve, we want these dollars to go to local businesses and to really support local community economic development. And we know we're going to have to invest in our small businesses to see that vision come to fruition. Workforce development, technical and project financing assistance, and we also are bringing home energy efficiency to the party. That's separately funded, but we know that the roots of the terribly high energy burdens in the Southeast are about the housing quality. We've got some of the lowest electricity rates in the country, but worst energy burdens, and people are really suffering in their homes. So this is the basic program design. And don't worry, we'll share all the slides. But our partners, our local coalition members, are the nonprofit, rural cooperative utilities, and municipal utilities across the region. And the fact that we're partnered with our local utilities is the reason we're able to do community solar in a region that doesn't have community solar legislation. So, Groundswell will be executing an annual RFP. We'll be pre-purchasing 20 years of electricity from successful projects. So developers will bid into our annual RFP for financial assistance. We'll then grant that electricity in kind to our local coalition members, to the municipal utilities and the rural cooperative utilities that we're working with, and with the condition that 100% of the value of that solar be distributed as a free community solar subscription to local, to use the technical EPA term, geographically distributed LMI households. But so that we're meeting the goal and we're supporting communities. And I also just want to uplift that in this program design, it's inspired very directly by what's been a very successful program design in the District of Columbia for the past 6 years, 7 years, for a minute. 8 years. But so this program design is adapted to the Southeast, but it's borrowed directly from a successful program in the District of Columbia that's serving almost 7,000 households today. So we know it works. And then these are the program components. Again, I'm not going to go through all of them, but community development is a priority. Community development, including workforce development, which is led by my colleague, Matthew Wesley Williams. Project deployment, getting stuff done, getting it built. Program operation, which is all the EPA requirements, and also managing subscribers, taking care of people, making sure they have a great experience. My colleague Rashad is around here somewhere, who makes sure that the people that we're serving understand and have a great experience with the work, and then meeting people's needs. And we just can't wait to get started.
Thanks, Michelle. So again, I'm Tyler, and I'm going to share just a few notes about HOPE's plan in Arkansas and Mississippi. So this is our mission, which I mentioned, and it ties directly to the 20% savings goal. So we really want to lean into that with every project. These are the dollar values you're seeing across our 2 states. And just a quick note here, Michelle alluded to this. We have a pretty tough policy environment. So like community solar is not enabled in most of these 2 states. And if we want to serve the entire state, we're really going to need to lean into residential rooftop and multifamily, which can start to look a little bit like community solar. And if you're wondering why the dollars are different, we noticed, or it was sort of loud and clear, that Arkansas had a tougher policy environment. So in Arkansas, we went ahead and proposed a battery with every solar installation. I just skipped over a slide, but in the purpose of time, I wanted people to think rural for a second. So the picture I have on the slide of multifamily, this is not what multifamily really looks like in rural areas. And if you think about the issue with multifamily in particular, you have the split incentive problem where basically the person who owns the building may not see a lot of the benefits. And when I say a lot of the multifamily doesn't look like that, if you drive around the Mississippi Delta, unless you see like a university with dormitories, you're going to see more like single family home looking grouped together, multifamily. And what that means in reality is that the split incentive problem is even worse in rural areas. So you have landlords who have even less incentive to go solar. And so the nice part about Hope being involved, and really what makes us perfectly suited to do this, is we have a history with these developers, and we've come up with some strategies that can help multifamily work in these unique settings. And as with Michelle, we have the peanut butter and jelly concept here of energy efficiency needs to come before solar. If you're not doing energy efficiency, you're probably overbuilding solar, which means less people are getting solar. And then roofing quality is going to be poor as well. So hopefully what we can do is rely on other sources of funding to hit some of these as well. We'd hate to have families want to access the program and be turned away because we didn't have enough money to do roof repairs. And then I'm clicking here. So this is one of those where, again, we're going to shoot our slides over to you afterwards. But basically what this slide is depicting to you is that we have a leverage concept built into ours. So those dollars you saw earlier, we want to basically triple those. And that's what these boxes are depicting, is a leverage concept. So where you saw about 150 million solar for all dollars, we think we can get to around $300 to $400 million of project deployment. And that's huge. I mean, that's really putting money to work in a smart way. And then in the interest of time, I'm going to pass it over, but we have this QR code. If anybody has questions here today, wants the slides, I'm sure we'll have a way to get these all out to you en masse, but please reach out to me. I think what's making these programs work is people like Michelle, Kenya, and Billy, picking up the phone and having conversations with each other and helping each other out. So just want to say thank you to everybody who's doing that. And please reach out to me if you have any questions.
All right. First, before I begin, let me see if I can get my slides up. I would like to recognize Emma Strong is here from our office. Emma's there in green. She is our program coordinator, young and enthusiastic and ready to do this. So please reach out to myself or Emma, but I'm going to be brief as well because I want to leave enough time for Billy. We are the energy office. Yeah, I do. I want to make sure you came from Texas. I want to make sure you get enough time because I can ramble, Billy. We all get along really well up here. Skipping ahead, here's my approach. Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. Start where you are. I got disaster houses that need solar storage, and they're already energy efficient, right? And I've got weatherization homes that have never had solar. They've already met energy efficiency standards. We need to show that that can work. So start where you are. Use what you have. I got great partners. We've got affordable housing, nonprofits, CDFIs. I have a great governor bringing all these partners together. And then do what you can. This is just a first step. This is not solving low-income solar in Kentucky. It's starting the first step on a path to where it's normal to have solar, right? And that is not where we are in the state of Kentucky. This is a home that we want to replicate. This is supports Governor Beshear's what we call Better Kentucky Plan. This is an example of a home that's been rebuilt for a disaster survivor, one of our affordable housing nonprofits, and you can see the solar on it. We want to build on what we know is working. This works. I just need to blow it up a lot and make it happen over and over again. Our goals are similar. Greenhouse gas emission reductions, 20 to 70% utility bill reductions. And for us, it's just demonstrate a successful program and braid these programs together. And I think that's for us is one. We have existing community solar in Kentucky. I would argue Arkansas and Kentucky's regulatory environment for solar is probably the same, right? We have challenges on community solar, but we do have existing community solar from our regulated utilities. And guess what? There are no carve-outs for low income. Nothing. We're changing that. Number one, we need a carve-out for LIHEAP. Number two, we need direct financial support for our disaster housing block grants. And those homes are going to get solar storage. Because I can tell you, if your house has been blown away, if your house has been washed away, the last thing you ever want to have happen again is to ever be without power. And you want to know that your home's not going to go anywhere ever again. We are committed to ensuring that those disasters home never lose power. And they shouldn't ever lose power after what those families have been through. Weatherization WAP, man, we got to get going with WAP, and we got to show how we can work together. And here's the great thing. We know where these homes are, right? So I don't have to go searching for them. I just need to locate them, get them into the program, and get solar on them. That's what we want to do to reduce the energy burden there. I think we want to do a community resilience hub. Michelle's got a great example of one that I'm going to steal. And I'm going to replicate hers in my state. But we know that during a disaster, if you're on oxygen, a heart pump, a lung machine, and you're dependent on electricity, it's scary if the power goes out, right? And what's your plan? We want to make sure that those populations that have electric dependent medical devices always have an option for electricity. So we want to show that. And then solarized campaigns. We've got existing solarized campaigns. We just don't have them in rural cities. We've got them in Lexington, Louisville. We call it the Golden Triangle. It's a Golden Triangle for a reason. So we're going to get solarized campaigns out because buy in bulk, drive down the cost, and get more solar out there. That's really us. You're going to have these two, workforce development, technical assistance, stakeholder engagement. Again, Emma Strong. Get involved with us in Kentucky. See how you want to help with us. We're not going to say no to help. I can tell you that. So with that, I'm going to give it to my friend Billy over here.
Well, thank you. Well, we're going to hear a couple of consistent terms, consistent themes. And one of them is we all steal from Michelle. Yes. So that's just a fact of life. And we're all better because of it. Again, good morning again. My name is Billy Briscoe, and I wanted to introduce Teresa Morales. Please wave your hand, Teresa. So, listen, I can talk about this stuff all day, every day, but the actual blocking and tackling, the day-to-day stuff, where the things are being made and done, starts with Teresa. So please have a chance, if you do speak with her, exchange information. She will be coming to your town soon if you live in EPA Regions 3, 4, or 6. Because that's our multi-state 19 state program. All right, so Solar for All. I wanted to highlight this, right? And so this is where I've met a lot of wonderful people. Michelle, you'll see Carrie is in here as well as Nina. This is sort of the party at the in DC. We weren't at the White House. We were at a park. That's right. And we got to see each other for the first time. Many of us to see each other for the first time, and we had been on these calls, but this was sort of the memorialization of that awful but wonderful day of October 12th. Thank you, Nicole, for putting that together. That was the day the NOFO was due in 2023, and I think we all lost parts of our life getting that thing done. But this was that wonderful day. So I'm going to go through a lot of these slides. I want to really get to the collaboration component. What Solar for All is, what our version of what our program is all about, is taking the Breaking Barriers program that was sort of a study of 4 colleges at AUC, AUC Center is Morehouse, Spelman, Morse Brown, and Clark Atlanta. And I think the distributed systems, are sort of inwardly facing, trying to figure out how they could leverage each other's apparatuses, platforms, financial wherewithal to reduce their energy burden. I believe I don't understand exactly where the financial prohibition sort of stopped, but I believe that it was widely accepted by everyone as being something that was worthwhile doing. But as in most things, moving forward takes money, and I think that was a big prohibitive step. So as I mentioned earlier, Steve Brown, who founded the Clean Energy Fund of Texas, and I were reading in this program and just salivating. Like, why can't we reproduce this around the country? How do we do it in a way that would fit within the EPA no-fill requirements? And we thought about creating a program that was residential serving, but you would have a sort of a distributed model on top of minority serving institutions. So what we were awarded funds for was to go through that 19-state region, identify tribal colleges and universities, Hispanic serving institutions, and HBCUs, to try and come up with about 40 deployments, if you will, around those areas. 40 deployments impacting thousands of households, tens of thousands of lives, and having a catalytic impact of about $350 or so million at the end of the day. You don't do this by yourself. You do it with collaboration with partners. And so our key partners, from an application standpoint, were the Bullard Center, Texas Climate Jobs, which is essentially Texas AFL-CIO. We wanted to make certain we had a significant workforce component. Since we were in Texas, we were building some relationship with them already. We used Texas Climate Jobs to leverage relationships with the North American Builders and Trades unions to cover the 19-state region, and obviously our key partner, NREL. This is typical impact data. Obviously, again, constant themes: 20 to 25% reduction. We're talking about the number of jobs we want to try and create, and these are jobs that are obviously pursuant to Davis-Bacon. Will be really good middle class jobs. It's going to serve to help and stand up, if you will, the renewable energy and green economy in terms of workforce development, community engagement, those types of things that really tickle pink over. Again, this is one of those slides where you should exactly you're probably going to want to go and look at this and look at the independent components, but it's talking about a model that includes both subject matter expertise. It includes obviously the university assets on top of their buildings or ground mounts. It includes participation from the community, workforce development, all elements of the ecosystem that goes to serve and produce these projects that help ultimately families within the LIDAC community families within their targeted areas. Again, one of these starts that we talk about that you want to come back and read, but principally we thought about this in terms of phases, right? Phase one, how do you have sort of a readiness program? How do you determine whether or not your university itself even fit the mode that we're trying to establish? So we're thinking about giving micro grants in phase one and phase two to again, come up with the readiness and determine whether or not you have a sustainability program, if it's even something that you want to do, can do, or in a position to do. Once you pass phase one, phase two is to say, okay, now you're ready. Let's talk about site development, site design, get some architects in here, see if our buildings are up to code, see if we need to do some remediation on the ground. Let's really start separating the herd, if you will, because ultimately we're already oversubscribed. We've got to get down to 40. I keep saying 40, and every time I say 40, I know Teresa wants to stab me in the back. Teresa would say 38. But I'm hopeful we can squeeze 2 more in there. And then obviously we get to breaking ground and really building things in phase 3. And as many of these models will have, we have a very collaborative capital stack in trying to do it. We have a lot of government-oriented free money. We have a component that's going to be responsible by the university is going to be responsible for a component of it, either from an equity position or debt, maybe trying to come up with some community models to help fund that as well. But we also envision bringing in the developers, EPC community to help out and maybe take on some of the project finance, if you will, to make the projects pencil. That's it. We have since these slides are going to be distributed, we have some information here with Teresa's phone number. So, and she loves calls. You see a theme. And I'm at the bottom for a reason. I'm the last resort. But seriously, I look forward to taking your guys' questions and talking more about the program.
Well, thanks everyone. Oh my gosh, I have so many questions now, and I want to dig in on each and every program, and I'm sure many of you do too. But I'm just super curious. This is going to be a super quick question. I just eke in here. But how many, just by a raise of hands, are taking the planning year? I'm curious about the audience. Who's taking the planning year? Okay, so the planning year for the Solar for All program was designed to give applicants a year to plan their program, meaning they, aren't really going to start implementation until that's done. And so it's the reason I'm super curious about it is because that may or may not impact timing and just availability of resources. Looks like Ken, you want to add? Yeah, totally.
So just to jump in there, I think for us, we're not taking the planning year for the entire program. Well, I know. So there are components of it similar to probably Arkansas, Mississippi. Our model on community solar and LIHEAP really is going to require that year of planning because it involves our regulatory structure, who can build and own the community solar carve-outs. But like disaster housing and WAP, I can push those, if EPA would let me, I can push out those subawards probably in the next 3 to 4 months if I needed to and get that going. I think workforce training, I don't really need a lot of year for that. I can push out that as well. So there are nuances in Kentucky's program that need the year, and then there are others that we can run with now.
And that's great that you can start with a piece or, and then put some aside so you can plan for that.
Yeah, and if I can just add a thought on that too for everybody here, because I know especially with the eye charts, right? There's a lot of complexity behind the scenes to how this stuff works. But think about all of us across the region, and we all talk. We're all chummy, and but think about across the region a phased approach, right? Where you have some going first, some going next. People doing stuff in partnerships that are appropriate to their state. But it's a wave that's building. And it's a wave that we're all working to coordinate so that we're working in unity and alignment, as Mike shared last night. And that we're really thinking about the incentives that we're building into the programs as we go to.
And Ken, that you can use LIHEAP funds to deploy community solar, right?
Well, we can, but that's another hurdle in the implementation of Kentucky's LIHEAP program. We don't implement LIHEAP out of the energy office. And, we have struggles even within our LIHEAP, similar in the Southeast. We have just not enough. Right now, they're just not really willing to let go enough to use the LIHEAP funds for the solar. We have to show it can work, right? Absolutely. Then I think we can take the next step of, all right, how is Kentucky implementing LIHEAP, and can we tweak that model? It's, again, I got 1,000 million baby steps. And the first is showing, all right, we can show a carve out on LIHEAP on community solar. That makes the most sense for LIHEAP. They need a monetary credit that looks just like the LIHEAP credit, and community solar can do that.
Love it. Did you add something?
One thing that's really interesting, I want everyone to also take notice of, and Michelle made a very good point. One, the process by which we implement is going to be staged. All four of us will have in our budgets some components, some monies for community development, workforce development, community engagement, right? And 4 separate budgets. All of our territories cross.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't yet, I promise you. But as chummy as we are, we haven't worked together in terms of figuring out if I can add $4 up, how does it measure up to be more than 4? How do we get $5 of value out of it? We've got to do that piece. So as we're thinking about whether or not the award would be impacted going forward, as we're thinking about how do we roll out our models, some of the things that we haven't really figured out, we know we're going to have to, which is why we meet very consistently, most recently, but probably much more consistently going forward, is how do we make our dollars, how do we make the $4 that we have be something north of $4 in value? And we would love to get the help from everyone, obviously you guys in the room, but everyone to help us monetize that value.
So I love how my super quick question that I snuck in there turned into an amazing conversation, which is actually a really important one because in terms of like deploying the program and rolling out the programs, how are you all working together? And one of the things that I wanted to point out why you all were talking, and I was, the word joy kept coming up, and just watching everyone sort of giggle, and it's clear you have such close relationships, and there really is so much joy in the partnership of rolling out Solar for All, and that makes me swell with joy as well. And it's funny because I'm looking at all the details of your programs, and I'm like, yes, like that's why, like, when we designed Solar for All, I put in all these things that I wished we had done in the first round. So like enabling upgrades as being like a big one. Like, God, we would just lose houses all the time because they needed roof repairs or an electrical system upgrade or or even just like access to internet. And then like the storage component, particularly in areas that, don't have strong net metering policies, and you really do need to get in there with storage. And then just, really sort of thinking about like how you're leveraging private sector capital too. So like, I know we baked in there like impact. Like, can you tell us how you're going to maximize impact with private sector capital? And that's part of the reason I'm in the role that I'm in today is that, I left the federal government this summer to join a bank. And like from, I still laugh at that because I'm like, wow, that's weird. Well, I've spent my entire career in all levels of government now, local, state, federal, and in nonprofit. And I've never worked in the private sector, but I really see this as a moment in time where we have designed programs and are seeding the market to really truly see market transformation. And I know you guys said that a couple of times. I know that's the EPA is rolling and like running with it. But if you can get private markets, private sector capital to come along to support these programs, like we've won. And so, Amalgamated Bank, if you're not familiar with Amalgamated, they're over 100 years old. They started out as a bank for workers in New York. So there were like women textile workers in New York, and nobody would bank them. And so Amalgamated started that way. And really, we are now the Union Bank, and really have a strong labor focus, but has been moving in the direction of really wanting to support climate and clean energy as well. We're 100% fossil fuel free portfolio. We're certified B Corp. And so like, if you're going to get a bank to support this, it's going to be Amalgamated Bank. And we really want to sort of be at that cutting edge of figuring out how to support. And that doesn't necessarily exclusively mean like, how do we lend to you? How do we give you money? It's a lot of it's partnership and like, in really sort of fighting for the programs and ensuring that you have the resources and partnerships that you need in order to move together. And the other sort of funny thing I wanted to point out before going back to the group is like, you pointed out Emma, and like, it's amazing the new generation of folks getting into this space and sort of the passion and the excitement and the motivation and the drive that next generation is going to bring to the table for successes. We were joking at some other panel we were on around us all being ARA babies. And so this is like 2.0. So you all are solar for all babies. And I love it. It's just making me like, it gives me goosebumps. And I know we're getting close to time, but I do want to touch on two things before we close out. And it's really the market transformation piece. And what does sort of the 5 years look like? So Solar for All is a really special program in that it's a subsidy program that is seeding 56 territories in the District of Columbia to ensure that they have strong markets leading on communities and households that sort of can benefit the most from the clean energy transition, that we should be putting forward first and ensuring that they have an opportunity to participate in the transition in many ways, whether it's seeing an energy bill reduction or job or being an entrepreneur. And it's meant to have a lasting effect. And so I'd love to sort of hear from your all's perspectives, like what does that lasting effect look like? What does 5 years look like from now to you? And how do you get partners like Amalgamated Bank to support and really carry the water in a way maybe you can't currently carry the water?
Go ahead.
So when we were setting our goals for Mississippi and Arkansas, we looked at some peer states, and Louisiana had been very supportive of solar at the state level. And for political reasons, that program went away very quickly. And what you saw there showed up really in the job numbers, not just the number of installs, but the number of jobs in Louisiana. And so when I think about 5 years from now, I think about a program that did exactly what we're talking about, market transformation. But we've got to make sure that it's not one of these sugar highs that goes away. This has to be thoughtful spending of dollars. And we have really got to focus on the transition out of the program so that all the jobs that are created stay there. And I know we're all thinking about sort of tomorrow, all that, but in terms of like how we all came to this work, I did want to do just a second of self-talk, if that's okay. So I think everybody's wondering what's going to happen to these programs. I just mentioned 5 years. Y'all are all thinking what's happening now. And I was in law school 15 years ago looking at carbon markets, super excited to do that work. If you had told me that I'd be on this stage looking at launching this program with funding obligated, able to help these communities today, regardless of what happened last week or what's going to happen in a week, I'd take it. And I'm very excited. And I think this joy is real. And I think everybody in this room, like, we've got the chance. Let's do it. Okay. So I know we're thinking about 5 years, but we've got the chance. Let's do this. Okay.
I'm going to give that an amen. No surprise there. It's about getting the good work done now. But, when I think about 5 years or 15 years or 50 years, I think about the rural communities and the small towns that we're partnered with. And I think about resilience. I think about, every community, every little rural town having local facilities, be it a church or be it a municipal building or a school with a resilience center. So that if the power goes down, the lights stay on and that community can charge their phones and keep their oxygen concentrators plugged in, keep the meat they just bought good until the power comes back on. And I think about local community sharing, being able to be more resilient, more self-sufficient, from that perspective. I think about the great jobs, not just solar jobs, but lineman jobs with the local utilities. I think about our rural communities and our small towns really thriving again and doing that in a way that is locally rooted, locally governed, and locally directed.
I'm going to keep it short. Twofold answer there. As a government official, I would say in the South, and specifically in Kentucky, market transformation means unraveling our regulatory model in a way that changes our utilities' perceptions about residential solar, right? Also, our regulators who regulate our utilities have to have a mindset to ask questions about utility programs? And do you have a low income carve out? Are you supporting residential solar? What does that look like? So in a state like mine, I have to be a tariff regulatory nerd and talk the language for the market transformation. That's my official answer. Second answer, unofficial, is when I leave my job and office, are people better off, and are they safe and secure? Do they have a little bit more flexibility in their family pocketbook to buy the crayons, the medicine? Are they not worried about paying their electric bill, or in the South, the light bill, So that's sort of the unofficial answer is I just want people when I leave to feel safer and more secure. I also would like our utilities to like solar on people's homes. Right now, they don't. And so we got to work on that.
Definitely. Especially in Texas.
Yeah.
So I like an SFA to like space exploration, right? We have 60 plus programs that we're going to throw against the wall and figure out at the end of 5 years, which will be, because I think all of them will have utility, but which would be more efficient, cost effective, which would be scalable, which out of that 60, half or 15 or all, the marketplace, we will determine ultimately which ones move forward. Now, my second answer is that I would love to think that what we're doing is going to be impactful. We have already existing infrastructure. Let's figure out how to welcome in new technology on top of that infrastructure for the benefit of itself and the surrounding communities. So while we're targeting regions 3, 4, and 6, 19 states on minority serving institutions, what 5 years look like and beyond looks like for me is this program being something that you don't have to do all the pre-work anymore. Universities are buying on to the program wholesale and committing their actual dollars, in addition to some state and federal dollars, to rolling out this program for the benefit of the surrounding community.
So what I'm hearing is basically LFG. We'll give this amazing panel a round of applause.